Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out once again to Bear Nation for tuning in to another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I am your host, Rob Napoli. The Bear Necessities is a podcast where we sit down with entrepreneurs, ecosystem partners, and innovation folks to talk about what it takes and means to launch, create, and scale business across the world. We talk about the journey and the challenges of being entrepreneurial-minded and how that translates into your journey, giving you the tools and knowledge to overcome challenges that you may be facing in your life's journey. The Bear Necessities is part of the Rise Up Media family, and we thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get into the show. If you hadn't already heard about it, or you don't already know, my new book, The Social Soul, How to Master Your Personal and Professional Brand with Intentionality and Authenticity is out now. You can find it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Go check it out, purchase a copy, let me know what you think, leave me a review. I appreciate y'all for the support. Can't wait to hear from you what stood out the most. Hey y'all, how are we doing? We are back again for another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I'm your host, Rob Napoli, and I'm excited. Today's going to be a fun one. We have on the show Jake Dunlap, the founder and CEO of Skaled. Jake has his own podcast, the Jake Dunlap Show, where he interviews amazing celebrities about how they become successful. But even more so, I've known Jake for a while now, back when he was in New York City. I know you're now in Austin. Yep. But Jake has had the opportunity to do some amazing things like sit down with Gary Vee. He's built a wildly amazing business that focuses around thought leadership, especially as it relates to sales, marketing, and brand. And he is on a personal mission to create the future of sales and how do we humanize it. And he talks so much about it. He posts daily content. So if you're not following him or don't know who he is, after this episode, I promise you'll want to follow and check it out. Jake, thanks so much for being a part of Bear Nation. Say what's up to the listeners. Awesome, man. Well, look, I'm looking forward to it and getting into some shit. I'm ready to hop into it, man. Yeah, well, we're excited. You know, this podcast, I started with the idea around entrepreneurship. And what I really love is hearing about people's entrepreneurial journeys, because entrepreneurship is a mindset, it's a profession, it's all these things, and it's something different to everybody. And you grew up in this sales world, grew into VPs, had some success and failures, and then you started your own company. So at what point of your life did you ever think that you were going to be an entrepreneur running a profitable business globally? Yeah, it's really interesting. I never had thought I would start my own company ever until I did. Like it was more of a, look, I was extremely good at being a VP of sales, building, scaling sales organizations that were wildly successful. But I sucked at politics. I sucked at like playing nice. And like, I just wasn't very good at certain like skills at 30, 31, 32. And what happened is, so I got fired for making the CFO cry at one point, and which wasn't cool, but like, there's more to it than that. And I'm like, dude, why are you making these other people money? Like, why? Like, they don't care about you. Like, they're not invested in you. These companies don't, especially as a VP of sales and a VP of marketing, the company does not give two shits about you. They all know that they're expendable. Every sales leader sees the stats about how short the tender is and the tenure is, and says, well, not me. And then it is you. So I just realized, like, man, it's a losing game to be full-time VP of sales in rapid growth companies, even though I loved it. So I said, well, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is I could just start doing it for a bunch of other people. And so for me, I wasn't interested. I was, 32, getting ready to be 33 at the time. I knew I wasn't ready for a lifestyle business. Like, I wanted to build a company. And so, some of the mistakes I made early were I didn't have a clear vision. It's like, it's around sales. So anything that was sales related, I would just take, and treat people like capacity meters and like fill them up with a bunch of random tasks, and then people would quit. I'm like, well, why'd they quit? It's like, well, because you have them doing 18 different things, man. It sucks. And so, again, it was definitely accidental, but I also was just very honest with myself about, okay, Jake, what's next for you? And also, I mean, let's be candid. Like, my fallback was not a bad option either. If for some reason this didn't work out, I could go make $500,000 being a VP of sales somewhere else.
right?
Yeah.
It was kind of low risk, but at the same time, like I once I got into it, and I had some really interesting opportunities 2 or 3 years in to kind of quit it and join, some funds. And at the end of the day, I turned it down, said, I can't do this employee at will crap, anymore. So that's how I started it, man. I'm happy we can jump into any parts of it. But, for me, again, it was more of just like, what am I really good at? And I still love it to this day. We're 9 years later. We got 40 something people globally. We've really scaled the business. We're going to be an 8-figure company this year. So it's real, it's real. And so I think for me, I just started to think about what are my strengths? What are the things I enjoy doing that don't feel like work? And that's how I landed on starting Skaled.
I love it. And so, originally you're from Missouri, right? Kansas City.
Kansas City. That's right. Thank you for not saying Kansas. Just for everybody out there, all your listeners, okay? 95% of Kansas City is in Missouri. Okay. Oh. I get it. Hey, look, I get it. It says Kansas City. So it's not like illogical, but like, just so most of you know, someone says they're from Kansas City but I take that back. There are people from like Overland Park that say they're from Kansas City because there's a whole Johnson County, Jackson County, but yes, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, Lee Summit to be specific.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from like North Kansas City. I went, I was born in North Kansas City Hospital, and my whole life, especially when I moved to Italy and I spent 2 years, I'm like, where are you from? And I'm like, Kansas City. And like, oh, you're from Kansas? No, I'm from Missouri. And I had to explain always where Missouri
is. What town did you grow up in?
I grew up in North Kansas City. I was in Parkville.
In Parkville. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like right north of the river, went to St. Pius X High School. So, for me, it's that lifelong battle. And even to this day, I still have people like, oh, you're from Kansas? Nah, I'm not from Kansas. So I love that. And so you originally from Kansas City, you went and did your master's in Arizona. How did you end up in New York? Like, you started the business here. How did you end up in New York?
Yeah. For me,
Missouri
my journey
to Arizona.
Yeah, my journey was, I went to school in Southern Missouri. So it was at the time Southwest Missouri State. And it was the largest bi-directional college in the US at the time, I think. So, I mean, it was bigger than Mizzou. So it wasn't, it's almost 20,000 undergrad. So went there, took my sweet time, messed around for too long probably. And, wanted to go to work in sports. So moved to Tampa right out of graduating, right after I got a job with the Tampa Bay Rays. So was there for a little bit, got promoted 3 times in the first year. And I think it's an important kind of piece there. If people are, if you have people that are still in college or have kids going to college. I worked during college. I had my junior year. I fucked around so much. I think I came away with 9 credit hours in a year or something like that. Maybe it's 15, 12 or something. And my dad's like, oh, cool. Okay. So you want to work full time now? Great. Like, I'm not going to help you at all. Like he would give me like $500 a month for rent or something like that before. And I was always still working, but he cut me off. Best thing that he ever did. And so I took a semester off. So I'll kind of go back and then I'll go forward. I took a semester off, waited tables at TGI Fridays, okay, for a semester. I worked there for almost 2 years. What do you call it? Took a semester off. Was like, dude, what are you doing? Lock your shit up. And, ended up getting like a 3.4 like the rest of the time that I graduated. I ended up with like a 2.99. So, overall when I graduated, and my degree was in entertainment management, which completely did not prepare me for what I was getting ready to do. But the reason I'm telling this story is, and then before that I had done telemarketing, because telemarketing also paid a lot of money. I worked at like 2 or 3 different telemarketing companies. So I came into the workforce already with skills. And so I got promoted really quick because these kids coming out of Princeton, James Madison, these East Coast, again, Southwest Missouri State, I destroyed these kids because I had real world skills. And candidly, it's like once I got out of college is when it re-triggered. I used to love to read and I used to have a thirst for knowledge that I just kind of lost in college. And so I started reading every sales book, listening to everything on CD. That's what we did back in the day. And so, was in Tampa for a year and a half, then got a job with the Phoenix Coyotes, moved out to Phoenix. I was in Phoenix for 5 years. I joined Career Builder when I was there. Then went to San Francisco for 2.5 years with Career Builder. Then I was the vice president of sales at Glassdoor. And then candidly, I say this with so much love, me and my wife, so my wife actually, funny story. So we were working at the same company. She was in Chicago. I was in Phoenix. I moved to San Francisco. I'm like, hey, what's up? I was like 28 at the time. I'd just been engaged. I'm like, look, I'm not really looking to do a long distance. If you move or something, she's like, okay. So my wife literally we went from long distance to living together in San Francisco, which I don't think I've talked about that story before. And so my wife and I did not dig San Francisco, man. Just wasn't, I'm like, I love everything around San Francisco, but the vibe was not me. It was not me, right? And so the funny part is, dude, I had never even been to New York. I had like a layover once. I had never even been to New York until I was 30. Never. And 2 years later,
I moved here 28. Yeah. I had never been here before either.
I had never been, and dude, but I remember very specifically, like plane flying in, touching down, going like, fuck yes. Like, yes. Like I just remember, I very vividly remember that plane flight flying in, because I was flying from San Francisco. I think I was the head of sales at Glassdoor at the time. And I was like, let's go. Like I immediately. And so, my wife and I were talking about what we wanted to do. We didn't love San Francisco. So I got a job as a VP of sales at a startup in New York. And that's when we went to New York. We were there for 6 years and, had our second kid, started thinking about long-term. And I still love New York. If I had, $10 million in liquid cash, we probably would have never left. But, we love it. I love going back still. We've got people there. So I travel back there probably every 60 days. But yeah, I mean, look, for me, again, like, I skipped over when I was in Phoenix, my company had a program. They said, hey, we'll pay for your MBA. I said, well, let me do that, because I didn't learn shit in school. Because I wasn't there for the right reasons. Nobody knows I have an MBA unless you maybe look at my LinkedIn. I don't talk about it because I went back for me. I went back for me to learn stuff. And I think too many people go back and they get their MBA for a checkbox. I got my MBA so I could learn how different people think and react. So that wasn't a part of my plan. But, look, I go to where I think the best opportunity is, and I continue to study. I continue to be a student at all times. Now I'm a student of being the best CEO I can be as we grow and we expand. And how do I prepare the company for that? So that's the journey, man. That's what's up. That's it in a nutshell, man.
I love it. I mean, it resonates for me a lot because, well, one, I met my wife in the 9 months before I met my wife. I bought a house, closed on it in July of 2014, met her in August 2014, started dating, and 9 months later was on a plane to Italy following her because she's like, I don't do long distance. Either we end this now before the heartbreak starts, or you fucking go. And I was like, let's fucking go. I left, six-figure salary, running sales for Kforce, like a whole thing. And I went to Italy to go back to school for me, because I was at that kind of point in my life after 5 years and doing, recruiting into Fortune 500 companies of like, there's got to be more, right? There's got to be more to life about what I wanted. And so that was the same thing. Like my master's was chasing her, but also for me to like, what do I really want? Where does that passion and desire come from? And then her job and mine sent me to New York at the same time. And I never thought about New York. And I was like, maybe I'll go for New York for like 3, 4, 5 years and then like move back to the Midwest. And I've been here for going on 6 and I have no plans on leaving because of that same thing. I felt that same way when I landed. And so you came out here to New York, Glassdoor, doing all those things. And then you started Skaled. What was that? I guess, what was the impetus of like, or when did you know this? Like, because you talked about you making that change, but when was this like, I want to fucking just start my own company in New York City and try to figure this out? You talked about the impetus of like not working for other people, but was there a plan to make this into a company? Or is this just like you to be a consultant and make some money? The plan was, dude, no. The plan was never, dude, I made more money in 2012 as a VP of sales than I have in a year running my company for 9 years. So I'm not in this. I'm in this for the long game, dude. I'm in this to make a shit ton of money on the back end, right? At some point. And I think, look, and that's the trouble with a lot of people when they start their own business. I always had the long game in mind. I'm 41 now.
right? Like I got a lot of energy, man. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to retire on a yacht I'd be bored. I'd hate that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make is like, if they don't see success early, I'm not making as much money, and it's because what I see a lot of sales leaders in particular. So I think you don't see as many sales leaders as entrepreneurs, is you get addicted to the money and you build a $400,000 a year lifestyle. That wasn't me, man. I came from my first year in Tampa. I made $14,000 net, $21,000 gross. Dude, I know how to live in a 1-bedroom apartment and eat frozen dinners, man. I didn't grow up with much. Like, we lived in duplexes and townhomes until I was a junior, and my mom finally was able to save up and get a house. Like, lived in, shared a room with my brother until we were 6th grade. I shared a room. No, I shared a bed with my brother till like 4th grade, and I shared a room with him till like maybe I was 15, 14.
Yeah.
I didn't come from a lot, so I know I don't need to go build a lifestyle that's going to trap me. And that's what I see a lot of people do. They go, well, my kid's got to go to these private schools. I got to have that second house. That's not me, man. Yeah. My wife is very much like that as well, too. She came from really, kind of, solid homes, but also not needing to have the flashy, and, her family's like anti that. So it's a good yin and yang. I do like to spend money. Do not get me wrong. Yeah. But I also know, but I also know the difference between overspending and living within your means. And I think a lot of people, I mean, honestly, I think that's something that's so insightful. I mean, my wife's the same way. My wife's way more frugal than I am. And I grew up with a twin, and both my parents married and divorced multiple times, and bankruptcy, the whole, I went through all that as well. And, what I see with so many people, like, I'm going to start a business, go raise money, do all these things and get rich and have the lifestyle I want. And you burn out of that really quickly. When you build a company for that money, you don't have that motivation, that fire to continue growing and going. So I love that you share that, because I think this idea of being an entrepreneur is so glorified and sexy, and it's really not. It is work, and it's the long game. And so as you started to build Skaled, when you started, what were some of the early challenges that you faced when you launched and kicked off? And what are some of those early lessons that you feel have given you that staying power 9 years in, 44 people globally? Were there any early moments of just really tough that you're like, I don't know what I'm doing? Or how did those early days play out for you? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I kind of touched on in the beginning. I think the biggest issue was I just didn't have a clear vision for what I wanted to be or do. Like it was like, I know it was in sales, and it's been interesting. Every time I cut a business line we grow faster. But it's the most, as you're growing, man, it's terrifying at times too, like to do that. So that was probably the biggest mistake, is that I didn't quite have a vision. And so I think it burned people out. And so, a turnover was really high early on at Skaled. And I think it was because I didn't do a great job of creating like real roles and focus and vision. Early on. And I think that's my biggest learning. And it's really like kind of 2017, 4 years in, things started to click, right? Where I'm like, wait, why aren't we, because we went from 300,000, 800,000 year 2, we did $1 million year 3, and then we kind of plateaued around there, for a while, this like $1 million to $2 million range. And, it was because I just didn't have a clear direction. On what exactly the vision for where I wanted to take it, and just thought it would kind of just like matriculate or some shit. I don't know what I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the biggest mistake early on. The other mistake that I made that I really didn't correct it till like 2020. 2020 kind of forced you, right? Like we took, our revenue dropped from 2019 to 2020 by about 25%. Now by Q4, we had an amazing Q4 2020, but Q2 and Q3 are tough. Like you're a services business that helps companies scale revenue. Look, man, people aren't looking for that right then. They're like, how do we keep the lights on? Or, when the pandemic first hit, especially a lot of like, our clients, which are, rapid growth startups. And we also work with a lot of big companies too. But so big companies were hit really hard. So their budgets kind of froze up a little bit. Rapid growth companies wanted to kind of keep it, stay safe mode. And so, it it was a very tough learning. But again, what I started to finally do is I created departmental budgets. Like, sounds like a, wait, Jake, you didn't have that. I'm like, no, it was just like, dude, I'm such an ex-sales leader. I'm like, just sell more shit. Like, spend the money, it'll all work out. Like, and no, that's not a good way to run a business. Like, build a forecast early. And now that's how I run the business. It just decreases stress. It's fucking great. So yeah, those are the big ones, right? Have a vision, have clear direction for your people. Don't treat your people like capacity meters that need to be filled up. Even if it means that you don't feel like they're going to be full-time on something, don't try to overwhelm them. And, set budgets. It's pretty wild how, when you set a budget, how close you actually get to it. Same thing happened as a VP of sales, creating like the first budget or forecast for many of these companies. So, yeah.
I love that. And so as you've kind of built the team and started to create the budgets and do these things, how is that like, for you as the CEO, because your goal is to be the best CEO possible, how has that like freed you up to give more to your team by having the right people in place with the right like budgets and things? How has that freed you up to this journey of being the best CEO?
Well, I mean, look, we're still scaling. We're still scaling. So I am still deep in the shit. Deep in the shit every day. But there are certain things now that I, like, one of the things I think now is like, I've got a few people in our like practice lead positions that, are doing an amazing job of, once, I kind of bring a deal over the finish line or we get a deal done, they take it from there and grow the account. Hiring is very difficult. Hiring is not easy by any stretch of the the imagination. But I think a lot of it is trial and error of like, what do you need? The other big piece of advice, okay, so this is actually maybe what will be helpful, is there comes a point where you should not hire for potential. And people are like, no, of course, you need to hire people who have been there and done it 2 or 3 times, or you're just going to keep stubbing your toe on dumb shit. So, just keep that in mind. I think a lot of times, that person's scrappy or they've done whatever. No. Forget that. I want boring and proven. And there's a difference between somebody who just has it on their resume or is older, right? I want someone who's done it and loves it. Like that's they love that stage of growth or scaling. So that's my advice there on hiring is hire people that have been there and done it. There comes a point when hiring for potential will just make you frustrated all the time. Yeah. Because you're like, why won't this person just figure this out? It's like, because they've never done it before. Yeah. So.
And having worked in recruiting for so long, like I can tell you that, yes, it's good to hire for potential and you need that in certain phases. But if you hire only for potential and you don't have that experience there, you lose out on so much because you need somebody to kind of pull people along and be like, look, I've been there. I've done that. Here's how to do it. Here's how to plant the flag and move the ball over the finish line, as you said. So I think that's really insightful because so many entrepreneurs just hire for potential because they're trying to hire low budget scrappiness. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what I did, man. That's exactly what I did.
And that's why I asked that question to you in that way, is because now that you're doing that, you're still knee deep in the shit. You're still doing all this. But as you go through this, and I've noticed it because of your content, it allows you to take your next step as a CEO to give yourself fully to helping bring things over the finish line, to help put out great content, to help move other things around the business and make better business decisions, which I think is so important. And you need people around you that can pull things up while you're being the best CEO. And in that vein, as you're trying to be the best CEO, what's the thing that 2022, I guess, 2022 now that we're in, as you're going into this year, what's like
March,
one thing?
We're already in March, man. I mean, it's
I know it's like we're sitting here at the end of Q1. It's flying. What is the thing that you're really working on? Is your goal to be the best CEO you can be? What is like one big personal thing that Jake Dunlap is working on?
I think for me, it's a few things. It's about finding the right people. We're at that stage right now. We've got some key roles, man. We just made a killer hire for our technology practice that I'm really pumped about. And so right now, a lot of this is finding, the types of people that I talked about. That we've got an awesome team. Like everyone at our company is like super motivated, excited about the work we're doing. Like our culture has never been better. But we need some more firepower around, again, the people who have been there and done it. And so I think for me, one of the big things is getting better at, getting top talent, I think is a big one for me. I also think, continuing, it's, as a leader, it's always this mix of, being too much in people's business or being aloof. And just so everyone out there knows, it is better to be a manager and like help people and get in the work and get in the weeds than to be that leader that says, well, my style is I just kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah.
The fuck, dude, that is called lazy. That is not the definition of leadership. And I don't know what book you read that said that leadership is saying, I hire people and I just, it's like, dude, you are delusional if you think that's what leadership is. Leadership's a mix. Sometimes you've got to do that with that. And then other times you got to do something different. You got to get in the weeds.
Yeah.
And so I think that continuing to get better at reading the room on when I need to get more in the weeds and when to back off. I think that's something that I'm continuing to hone as a leader.
That's a skill that's lifelong, right? And I think that's amazing, especially as you have continued to grow global. Right? You're managing 40 plus people globally, different time zones, different cultures, different backgrounds, different ways of working.
Just hired a guy in Singapore, right? So I've got Singapore, UK, South Africa, got a bunch of people in Canada, all over the US. It's all over.
How do you manage that from like a communication standpoint and checking in with everybody and the time zone differences? How are you personally kind of managing multiple continents, team members, as you kind of disseminate your message out and make sure that things are moving in the right direction?
It does become more difficult at times. I do a lot more like night meetings, I guess is probably Singapore. And then sometimes I've got to do 7 a.m. I'm not I used to think I was a morning person. I finally had an epiphany. I'm not. And so I stopped torturing myself. Flexible. And then, and another thing is making sure that you're being a good leader for those people because, you're not putting meetings on their books that are convenient for you, but 8 p.m. for them or 9 p.m. for them. So I just think there's a little bit of extra care that you have to give. Here's the thing, man, talent is everywhere. Like, and in today's world with, we're almost 100% virtual, many companies still are, if you don't learn how to hire globally, you're just missing out. Who gives a shit? I don't care. It could be based in, Guatemala or Brazil or Africa, Kenya. I don't give a shit where they talent is talent. And I think the more companies can figure out ways to just be smart about how they work with those people, and what we've done, it's not difficult to hire people. We've got agencies we basically hire people through, right? We run. Eventually we'll set up DBAs in these different parts of the world, but for us, it was really it was always a point of hey, we need to get more people that are somewhat in market, just to alleviate the burden. Because then the alternative is my team gets burnt out in the States because they're on calls, as opposed to having people in market. So I just say I try to adapt and be very thoughtful about, what time, what time is it in New Zealand right now or something? And, try to just, be cognizant of that.
Yeah, it's really important. And having managed multiple teams and clients on different time zones, it's tough. And I love that you kind of find that balance and you make it about them, right? And what works best for them, because when you make it about them, they can go be more productive. And that's, I think, a really great lesson for so many leaders, because it's really easy to be like, I'm the boss, I'm the leader, it's my schedule only. And that's not a great look. That's not what leadership is, as you've kind of just described here.
Yeah.
So I think that's really
shitty.
So how do you it's not, but I've talked to way too many founders and leaders like that, and just that doesn't work. So how do you find balance with growing a business globally, all these different time zones, doing all these things? How do you find balance? You talk about I love that you talk about this myth that like, you see all these like business things, like you have to be a morning person. It's like wake up at 4 a.m. and meditate. And this is like, fuck, life happens, man.
Dude,
like you have kids too. And like your kids fucking flipping Pokemon cards and
almost
you have
4.
2 kids
That's right, dude. I got an almost 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. Right. And that makes this all really difficult. Yeah. I read this book called The 5 a.m. Club. This is like 3 years ago. It was right before the pandemic. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to, it was like you do 20 minute, like, what was it? 20-minute workout, 20-minute meditation, 20-minute professional development. So I did it for 44 days. I was fucking miserable. I hated it, dude. I'm like, and then finally there's one day I'm like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, this is dumb. And so I think that there's a lot of that in life. I'm more of a night person. Like I love, like last night, for example, we had to do this big kind of Salesforce cleanup. Like we're doing it as we tighten the ship and we're doing better at tracking, where our revenue streams are. So, I do a lot of our new business. So I'm kind of the best equipped to do this, or take someone like, a week to do it where it's probably going to take me 10 hours. And I would rather jam at night. I love it. I love to put my headphones on and put them on my fucking 90s R&B, like Casey and JoJo and Jodeci and Keith Sweat. And I just bang out, Salesforce. Whereas other people, look, maybe for you want to do it in the morning. Like, great. Yeah. Like for me, it's easier. I've got young kids. Last night my wife helped to put into bed, but usually we do it together. So it's about being intentional. It's finding about the right rhythm for you. For me, I'd rather, spend a little bit more time with my kids in the morning. And then, when they get off school, hang out for a little bit. And I think that is one of the benefits of this kind of new world of like, my team too. Like if they, you were talking about working out, during the middle of the day, dude, if that's what you want to do, like, I think that's the beautiful part about the world we live in now is like people can really arrange a life and a schedule that it can all fit. Yeah. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't believe that. They're like, I got to make a sacrifice. I do feel like I like one of my big kind of things for this year is, dropping the COVID-15, and some of these investing more time for myself. Because again, especially when you have 2 young kids and you're running a company, it's really hard to prioritize yourself, right? My priority now is like, let me go on the golf course and have some beers, that's, I just need to decompress, right? So now it's about going to SoulCycle, doing other things to, keep the health going. So, that's it, man, is find the right rhythm for you. 5 a.m. is your jam. Fuck, that's great, man. Look, it's not mine, and that's okay. I'm not judging myself because, I'm tired at 5 a.m.
I love that. I think that's so important. Like for me, I do all my Europe work, 7 a.m., 6 a.m. sometimes to about noon. And then I go to the gym and I have time to eat lunch, take a shower, take a nap. And I do all my US client work like 2:30 to 7 o'clock at night. And it's like perfect. So I have that middle of the day, it breaks up. Like whatever works for you, it needs to happen. And we need to stop trying to put everybody in boxes. And on a side note, next time you're in New York, if you want a golfing buddy, let me know. I have my clubs and love playing golf. So we'll have to get out of the course.
See, what happened is like now that I moved to Austin, man, it's great. Like literally we have a country club. It's literally 3 minutes from my house. So it's like, it's fucking great, man.
I love it. How do you like Austin? You moved there a couple years ago now, right?
Yeah, it's been 2018. So it'll actually be 4 years in July. Yeah.
And you like it down in Austin?
It's great, man. Yeah, it's great. We're loving it. It's just, look, I mean, I'm like you. I grew up in the Midwest, right? And so, Midwest, here's what people don't understand. Midwest people are nice, but they're not like overly nice. At least I don't know how you see it. But for me, like I feel like Kansas City people in like Missouri, Kansas, it's like, we're not going to go out of our way, but we're going to be polite and hold the door open and that stuff. But it's not like, and what I like is Texas also isn't like super Southern hospitality. It's like somewhere in between. Like I could call people I've met like twice and my kid played soccer with them and be like, hey, could you like, this thing came up, can Landon play with so-and-so? They'd be like, yeah, no problem. Like there is this, like it's much easier to live. Where in New York, right? If you barely met someone twice, you're like, what? Why are you talking to me, man? But I do think New Yorkers are way nicer than they get credit for. But no, dude, it's great, man. We love it. Austin's got a great mix of, things to do, but also really high quality of life. So we're loving it, man.
Love that. Well, I want to transition into a conversation with you because you've got this opportunity to sit down with Gary Vee and have an amazing experience with him. What was that like? And what are some of the big takeaways getting to sit down with such a big personality like Gary Vee? Yeah. And how did that impact you and all the things that you've created?
Yeah, I mean, it was good timing. So I'll tell you kind of the precursor. So it was May of 2018 where I had an epiphany. We were doing what every consulting firm's supposed to do, which is putting out blog posts, putting out white papers, all those things, right? And what I would do, like we put out this killer this is the nail in the coffin for me. We put out this amazing white paper about this law that was passed in Europe called Gdpr. If you're in sales, you might know it. It's basically a piece of legislation around privacy that was kind of a big deal of fines were really big and things like that. So we did this really awesome piece, kind of distilling it down into 8 pages for any sales or marketing leader. And then you put it out on social and it's like, nah, it's like, it's okay. Like 10, 20 likes or something. You're like, what? Like, give us time. You get 100 downloads, whatever. And I finally realized, man, nobody cares about this blog. Nobody's doing this anymore. That's the old game. The new game is people are scrolling and you got to catch their attention. And I was always very nervous. I always used to talk about Skaled. Hey, Skaled's doing this. Skaled's doing this. Because I didn't want to see, again, growing up in the Midwest, you can appreciate this. You don't talk about yourself. You don't brag. You don't put yourself out there. Right. I mean, that's how my parents raised me of that's the worst thing you can do. But what I realized is nobody cares about companies. They care about people. And I started to listen to kind of Gary a little bit. Then, because I remember hearing Gary back in 2012 or 13. I'm like, man, I'm not feeling this. But I don't remember. I just listened to it. I'm like, dude, yes, because he wasn't talking about LinkedIn then. He was not ever talking about LinkedIn. He was only talking about Instagram and Facebook, Snapchat, probably Snapchat a lot then too. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to change my strategy. I'm going to start posting as me, and I'm going to start posting every single day on LinkedIn. And it started to work. But again, it took time, right? People, again, they think social media just you put up some posts and then no, man, it took it didn't really start working for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And then I remember this is early fall of 2018. We got an inbound, and I literally get on the phone with this woman, and she goes, Jake, I don't quite know what you do, but I think we need your help. That client became a 6-figure client for us. She didn't even know what we did. And she's just because of organic posting about sales and scaling, and now LinkedIn is our biggest lead source by far.
Yeah.
Right. Organic, we spend this much money zero advertising on LinkedIn, and we generate millions, plural. Last year, my guess would probably be 2 million to 3 million organic LinkedIn. People came in as from a referral or from a blah, blah, blah. I saw it's very real. And it also really influences the sales process too, where people, they come to my profile whoa, this guy actually does know what he's talking about. And so I got an opportunity. It was in October of 2018 and sat down, there's a bunch of sessions with some of his team. And, his advice was, we talked about LinkedIn, et cetera. And he's like, yeah, we're starting to notice it too. I still would like to credit myself for really bringing LinkedIn to Gary's attention. I would like to credit myself with that. October of 2018. I'm telling you, he was not talking about LinkedIn before October of 2018.
2018 was when I started following you, because I met you in 2017 at an event with Venture Out. 2018 is when I started really getting into personal branding, and 2019 is when I went and did a talk in Prague about it, because I saw you doing this. I need to get on this train. So you were the one and I wrote a book that came out. I don't know if I told you, but my book on personal branding came out this year, and this is my journey from Italy on and how my personal brand developed. And it was kind of kickstarted because of you and your journey into this. So
that's awesome.
I'll give you all the credit.
I love that, man. I love that. And you know what he said? And I think I've got the video somewhere. It was on his podcast too. But he said more. He goes, whatever. He's like, I can see that you get this. And he's like, if you want to know the answer, it's more. And people, and I kind of knew that, right? And so now, let me put this in perspective for people. So I have a YouTube person, the person who has my Instagram, Twitter. I put out on a weekly basis across all social platforms. I'm going to guess, including tweets, I would guess 60 pieces of content a week.
It's a
60,
lot.
Right?
It's a lot,
right? My YouTube started to blow up. YouTube's starting to get there. We're only at a few thousand subscribers, but it's starting to arc. We're putting out 3 or 4 YouTube videos. I'm really excited about YouTube. But that was the advice. It was more. And he's right, because look, people buy from people. And for me, and how about people trust people? That's actually maybe a better way to put it. And maybe the two are related. But, I can talk about scaled, or I can just talk about really tactical, interesting things. And then you'll figure out that I run a consulting company. Like, you know, and too many people are scared to do that. They hide behind their company, right? You know, and instead of doing that, instead of being the face, they're too nervous about it. And so that's what I learned.
I love it. And, you know, now as we look at, you started, I think, did you start the Jake Dunlap Show last year? Or is it this year that you started? Last summer you started.
It's awesome, dude. I love it. It's completely different, man. It's completely, I don't talk about sales at all. I love sales, man, but I love, you know, kind of like what we're doing here, man. You know, I was like, it's so fun for me, man. Honestly, like we basically just tell people's story, man. We'll go back to childhood. You know, what were you like growing up? And, you know, we start early, you know, okay, you immigrated from here, you parents immigrated from here and you did this and, you know, something happened with your brother. And what I found is that all these things early in our life affect us so much down the road. This chip on your shoulder you get because you got cut from your sophomore baseball team turns you into a multi-billion-dollar CEO. You know, like there's all these stories, and I just get to shut the fuck up and listen, and ask, and use all my sales skills as an interviewer to ask really, you know, good questions. We do a ton of prep. I think that's something that, you know, is really different that I try to do with my podcast. Is like, I have a team. I've got a podcast person, and I know everything about this person before we get on the call, and they love it because it's just like, you know, they feel like I'm invested in the story. And so the podcast, if you're into hearing people's journey and stories, really amazing episode today. This woman's the head of a multi-million-dollar cookie dough company called Dope. And she talked about, you know, her battle with alcoholism. And I
was listening to it earlier today.
Yeah, dude, it was so wild. Good. I mean, people and her
like story in Barcelona when she like went to an AA meeting in Barcelona.
Said nope, I'm done, and she quit straight there. And you know, now she's, you know, she talks about it openly, and you know, her company donates, and you know, so it's just that type of stuff that you just never know what's going to come up. I don't know a lot of this stuff going into it. I know some of it at times, but I really love the podcast. So if you're out there, you listen to this podcast, I think the types of stories that you're telling here, man, I think people enjoy too.
Oh, I love, and you know, Neil Patel was one of your guests, and I've been following him for years. And you know, when you decided to do the podcast and kind of take it from this other lens, right, where you get to like really get into stories and learn, what was the reason? Like, what is the feeling like for you to like run a podcast as a host? Like, what is your favorite thing about just getting to be in that moment with that person?
Well, like what, like why, like what is it like for me, or what the
just like what for you is the best thing about being a podcast host and getting to do this?
It's just the stories, man. It's just honestly, I get to kind of just chill and lay back, and I do feel like I have a duty to ask kind of tough questions from time to time. So it's a totally different part of the brain. You know, it's like a creative outlet for me, which I think for some people, you know, I have the benefit of, you know, I don't need to, I'm not looking for sponsors. I'm not looking for, I got money to pay these people. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to make it about anything else other than just being there and talking to this person and telling their story, you know? And that's, I don't need to have an agenda or try to make sure it's generating new business for me. It's kind of the opposite. So it's a very creative, freeing outlet for me.
I love that. I mean, I started this as just a side project because I wanted to be able to talk to cool people and hear great stories. And I got into entrepreneurship late when I started, like when I went to that master's. I had an opportunity to go work for Nielsen in Brussels on like the Mars account. I worked for this like little scrappy 12-month-old sports startup. And I was like, give me the startup, give me this, let me be head of content and figure this shit out. And as I went through and I've coached for all these accelerators, that was what I noticed, like, so much is wrong about entrepreneurship, what people talk about. You hear these stories of like Ubers and the same shit. And it's like, no, let's talk to real people grinding out, scaling real businesses, what they go through and why. And it's so much fun to talk and just listen and learn their stories. Exactly. So I love that you do that episode. And I can really see the other side of you because I follow your content. I've got to meet you and I know you, and you've done some work in one of our boot camps. So like, I see that like Jake is like the sales guy, but to listen to your episodes and get to hear you have just like real conversations in a different tone is such, I think it really shows your full authentic self in both sides of you. So absolutely, anyone that's listening this episode should go follow the Jake Dunlap Show, because it is a great podcast with great guests. And I what I love about it is you have these awesome celebrities and they're having this conversation about like what made them who they are. And it's like, you realize they're real fucking people. And it's such a cool, you could feel that come through the audio experience. Dude. So that's why I love to ask that question, talking to other podcasts. So when we look at, creating the future of sales and the impact that you want to make, what does that look like? What does Jake Dunlap's legacy look like when it's all said and done?
Oh man, that's a good one. Look, I feel like the next 5 to 10 years, sales will change more than it probably has in maybe the history of time. And the reason is, think about consumer purchasing behavior, right? We are used to frictionless purchasing, click of a button. My jam is B2B sales, right? I'm not an expert on growth hacking or B2C or e-com, for example, but I am a consumer, right? And someone who's, an early adopter of lots of consumer tech. But these same trends of people wanting an experience, let me self-guide, let me get a little bit further down, give me the right information at the right time, are going to be massively critical. Right now, sales is basically, most B2B sales orgs are set up to create friction almost. It's like someone sends a note, maybe they get followed up with, then you have someone qualifying them who's so focused on MEDDIC or one of these methodologies. These methodologies were built in the 1990s. How much, I kid you not, MEDDIC, this model that all these sales leaders use, MEDDIC was built for how people bought in 1997. How different is our world?
A lot.
Since 1997. So, but the problem is that we tend to move very slow. So the organizations that are going to win are going to give people access to information. They're not going to harass you to hop on a call 24/7 to just get pricing or to get, hey, how are you different than this competitor? And that provide an opportunity to click to buy up to 40 or 50,000. Like, I've told this story before about the worst issue ever trying to buy from Salesforce. End of the year, well, we wanted to spend some money, maybe bring the tax burden down a little bit. I reach out to support. Hey, I don't even know who my rep is. It takes like a week to get this person on the phone. I'm like, hey, can I just go pay with my credit card? They're like, no. They sent me a PDF. I had to fill out a PDF and send it back to them. I'm like, what
is this Salesforce?
Yes. And there's another tool we use, a project management tool that we use, same exact experience. I'm like, what lunacy is this? Look, I know you want to hop on a call. And of course, the rep, I want to hop on a call, right? Yeah. I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, no, we're not hopping on a call. I want to early renew now. And so finally he got it. And look, and I know I'm on the innovation curve at the beginning, right? But that behavior, and then cool, yes, we can catch up in 3 weeks and talk about my growth plans and what I'm trying to do with the business and my new seats. Talk about all that. Okay. Yeah. But this idea of throwing up friction with these roles that, by the way, they were great for a long time. They made sense. Right. But now I think people demand something a little bit different, you know?
And I'm with you. Like, I like to buy stuff for a year too. Like, I don't want to pay a monthly subscription. Let me buy it for the year. Let me clear it off my books, put my credit card, I'll pay it off. It's easier for me than having to figure out every monthly pay. We do create so much friction. I love that you share that because, all the different methodology. I saw that post and it got a lot of conversation.
Oh, yeah. Some people were not fans of that. MEDDIC is still... That's the other thing. I'll tell you what, and a lot of people there still is an economic buyer. Like there still is this person. Amazing post. I actually just happened to see it this morning, right before I was taking my kids to school. And it was a C-level executive, this woman at a mid-sized company, who said, stop thinking I'm the decision maker. She's like, the only decision I make is to hire people who make those decisions. And I was just like, boom. Exactly. And so this whole concept, like there is a buyer circle, and at any given point, anyone could be the economic buyer. Anyone could be the champion. Anyone could be a detractor. And so we have to start to think about what's the most frictionless way that still it's called sales, not information giving, that we can move people through the process. And so if my legacy can be to help to usher in that era and start to change the way that we're building teams and interacting with customers, then I'll be happy.
I fucking love that. And you also had a great post about proposals, right? And closing deals. And I actually commented on it because I've been coaching some of my startups. try and get them on the phone to walk them through is do it via Loom. And I've seen so many people, and I myself have closed deals by sitting out the proposal in a Loom.
Yeah,
don't ever send them the stuff. Man. Don't show them the money, but you walk them through the proposal, and they may be like, let's get on a phone call. Let's get this done. And it's like, change the way that you think about how they can get that information in a very personable way. That's dialogue, using video. You talk about this time, use video, use voice notes, like so many different ways to pattern disrupt and just be a fucking human. That is so easy to do, but people are afraid to do it. I love it. I love that impact.
It's so easy. Yeah, just video's the shit, man. You can use video to do it. We use it internally all the time. Like my goal is I want to continue to eliminate like most of our meetings at Skaled. It's like, look, we are not, as humans, email and meetings are not work. That's not actually work, my friends. That's talking about work. Okay. And so like, we use Vidyard internally to be like, hey, like instead of setting up a meeting to walk me through it, you can do it on your time and take 5 or 7 minutes, and I can do it on my time. So, we do a lot more of that, man. But no, this is a lot of fun. I enjoyed the conversation.
You bet. Last question I have for you is I always like to close out and ask this one thing is, what is your superpower? What do you think your superpower is?
I think about this a lot, especially when I think about hiring, right? Because I want to try to hire people who have different superpowers. I think I am a really amazing root problem solver. And I think it's from years and years and years and years and years and tens of thousands of hours of training as a salesperson. My superpower is to get to the root of what the actual issues are and separate the noise, and then build a very functional plan forward. Like I don't get stressed out in things. Again, I say, great, let's break it down. Okay, now let's break it down into the small things that need to happen, and we just go out and execute. So I think that's my superpower is the ability to really listen very actively and really understand, okay, what's actually happening here versus putting Band-Aids on things. Hey, this is actually a broken arm. We need to set the broken arm. And too often people they think of an issue and they go, oh, here's a solve. And I think my superpower is getting to the heart of what's the real issue, and then the solve becomes obvious.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a great superpower. Thank you so much for sharing, thanks, for being a part of this. How can my listeners follow up with you and find you and follow your content?
Definitely go check out, and you can put the links in there, jakedunlapshow.com. Always definitely follow me on LinkedIn if you're into sales, marketing, leadership, career. It's just Jake Dunlap. You can just type it in the URL. You'll find me pretty quickly. And then definitely go check out YouTube. Like I said, we're trying to do a lot of stuff there. We're putting out 3 or 4 new videos a week. And I'm on Instagram now. Started doing TikTok. Dude, my second TikTok video got like 27,000 views and like 100 something likes. It was a pretty cool story. So the woman is in the room whenever the CEO of Blockbuster told Netflix no, they didn't want to partner with them. So it's a pretty cool story. So I can't take all the credit.
Love that. Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to link all that in the show notes. Jake, thank you so much for being a part of Bear Nation, for sharing some wisdom and thoughts and things with us and your legacy. I really appreciate having you on. And next time you're in New York, let me know. We'll go get some golfing in. All right.
Love it, brother. Yeah, good to catch up, man. Glad to hear you're doing well.
Absolutely. Bear Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, stay well, rise up. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Bear Necessities podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. It really does help and means a lot to us at the show. And I want to thank our friends over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. It's our mission to support and give back to the communities that we serve around the world. And we do this by giving every guest on our show a $10 donation to the cause of their choosing using the Fin platform. Until next time, thank y'all, stay well, and rise up.